Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's April 29th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. A couple of things before we get started. I recorded another trade example today. I was going to put that at the beginning of the video, but I think what I'll do is just tack that on to the end. So hang around at the end of the video and you'll get a freebie on another trade example. And let's see, a couple of things I want to talk about. I did get at least two emails a day that people ask me what happened right in here. And make sure you at least go check the news each day. Today was an FOMC announcement day. It comes out at 1 o'clock my time, which is Central Standard Time. So you want to be aware of that news item, and you want to be flat going into it, because usually the market will be really flat right before going into it. People will start exiting and won't add new trades. And you can see that right here, really from about 12:30, how flat it is right into 1 o'clock, and then boom, that's when the news came out. Boom. And it drops down. But you can see here, even with the news item, the price action still holds. So we were working in this channel down, and it just continued to hold all the way down, even in the news item. So the price action works. It just moves a lot quicker, so it's a lot harder to trade. And you don't know that it couldn't have taken a big break here and then moved down and come back up, but this trend line still held. So just be flat. I usually say be flat by noon Central Standard Time, and that way you've got a whole hour. If you're already in a trade, you can manage it up until maybe 30 minutes to 15 minutes prior. I'd be out probably about 30 minutes till that 1 o'clock hour, just in case somebody's got some news in advance that something crazy, because if nothing will affect the market quite like FOMC. And today this is really kind of tame move right here. I've seen it move 40, 50, 70 points in just a blink when something caught the market off guard or surprised. We hadn't seen any of those in a while, but they're not doing much with the interest rates right now. They're just kind of letting them sit. I don't even know if they changed anything today or not. I mean, they can't go much lower, so I guess it's possible they could go negative, but I haven't seen the news, so I don't know. The market liked something. Look how it took off up here. And I mean, if you look, we're almost back to 3,000. It's hard to imagine that we're already back to 3,000, and there's no good news at all. There's been it's earnings season, so a lot of companies are going to be announcing their earnings, and the ones that have announced have been horrible. Nobody's working, nobody's spending any money, so it really makes you scratch your head and say, why would the markets go up like this? But that's why you can't trade on fundamentals. You have to go with what the price action tells you. And that's what we're doing here. We're learning price action. We're going with what the prices tell us. We don't care about the news. In fact, they write most of the news to fit the price action. I know that for a fact. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I know that now. They wait till the price action's there, and then they write the news to fit it, and that's how it's done. So don't believe the news, and don't think you can trade off fundamentals, because these markets, there's no way these markets are following any fundamentals, because if you heard me talk about it the other day, I mentioned where I saw an article that was talking about, and they showed a bunch of the different economic charts. I can't even remember what they were, but they were comparing earnings and unemployment and GDP and things like that, and they were showing it all the way back to the Great Depression. And really, the Great Depression looked like this little blip down right here, and then right now we're like way down here. Except this line would really be way down here, be all the way down here, and this is the Great Depression, this little blip right here. But yet the market's still climbing higher when we got the worst economic news in the history of the markets ever. So there's no rhyme, there's no rationalization for prices going up like this. I'm glad they are, because I have other investments that were beat down pretty hard, and now I'm glad they're coming back. But I'm not convinced that this is all that down move is over yet. So the one good thing about it is, at least if we're going to get a measured move down, it's not going to be that much further now. If we'd have taken a measured move down from a few, from a week or so back, that would have been really scary. But at least now we know the if we get a measured leg down, it won't be nearly as bad as what we originally thought it might be. It'll still be a nice ride down, but it won't be anything like we originally thought. So I did not mark any trades on here because I wanted to talk about a few other things. And with the news item in here, I'll show you a few trades. There's one trade in particular. I hope I can find it on my chart. I think I know where it is, but I had at least 3 different people send me their chart asking about it. So, and they all, I finally figured out where it was. One trader I wasn't quite sure where it was happening on his chart. I think it was right here. But once I got a few more charts, and it looked exactly the same, but they sent me a little bigger picture where I could look back and see. I still don't know how they get their trend line to here. I'm not sure. I've tried everything on my chart to get it there, and I can't get my chart to draw anywhere near that point right there. So I'm assuming that's it though, or actually I think they were up here. So maybe I think that trade's right in here. Yes. Wow, I hope that's where it is. I'm gonna go find it. Okay, this is the chart, and it comes back. This is where they're having the issue right here. Notice you got a new high, and then you got a first entry. Your second entry is really here. I think they counted this as a double top. You could count that as a double top. Really, you got a first entry, second entry, and this is really just a third entry here. But notice I drew the trend line coming down, and it's still holding. Let me try to find that on my chart. Okay, here it is on my chart, and it looks a lot different. Actually, it's this spot right here because they had the 2 legs up, and then this big move down. It bounces pretty close to right off the trend line, and then it comes back right here. So this is where they were going long right here. If you count that as a double top, which it does look like a double top on mine, then the first entry and the second entry, and it fails. It just starts going sideways before it goes lower. So it doesn't quite get back to my trend line. I tried to draw my trend line every way I could to make it look like theirs. But if you start off that low and you go off those first closes, let me see if I started it off that low. But see, you got to change it a little bit here. I think that even changes it more. So yeah, now you're getting even further away. So I don't think that's how they're getting to it. But that's the way I originally had it. Or no, I changed the angle on it, didn't I? Get it back. But you can see that I'm starting, let me get it right off those lows. There it is. We go right off those closes. It catches those right there. But we don't get back to it right there still. So, my chart's slightly different. I can see why you might look at that as a second entry, and if it's off your key entry point, it looks like a pretty good trade. So the only problem is on my chart, you are going long right into the EMA there. So that can be a concern. But here's a couple of things to look at. for any of y'all that got caught here. Notice how we're inside, we're bouncing off the trend line, we're bouncing off the trend channel. Notice how we came off the trend line, came off the trend channel. We went back up here, but we didn't get back to that point. There's a gap in there. So that's telling you that we're losing a little steam to the upside, and we get this big correction, and then we bounce here back off the trend line, and we tested it multiple times. So where should we at least go from here? Back to the midline. But instead, we turn back down and come down again. So that looks like a correction after a big leg down. So what might happen is you might get another leg here. And you showed the momentum to the upside's waning. You can see it right there. And then the fact that we're even so far away before it turns down again, it's waning again. And if you didn't enter there and then you waited for another one of these other ones, by that time you can see you're going sideways. Let me look at his chart again. You can see it starting to stack up. But the main thing is draw that trend line down. To me, his doesn't really look like a second entry. It looks like a high right there, first entry, a second entry, and this looks like a third entry. So that's another thing on his chart. I see why he, on my chart it looks like a second entry. His chart it does not. But you can see it on mine. Let me make it a little bigger again. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you can see I do have a double top there, the first entry, then a second entry, and then this is a third entry way down here. And then you get a high or low. So if you were going to enter, that's the better place to enter with still plenty of room back to the EMA right there. So anyway, if you got burned, excuse me, I got choked there. But if you got burned right there, there's not much I could say other than draw your trend line and wait on a high or low. Here for sure, because you got a long trend down, but you got a break here and two legs down, and then it went higher right there. So, and we didn't go very far, and then it turns back down. So those two clues would be about all. Plus, as you see on my chart, here's another clue, is you have this brown channel. Draw it off these two lows, and so that's where we were really headed back to, and we actually turned down off the midline of that. So what happened is this first trend a little steep and it flattened out some. So if you go back to his chart, he doesn't have that on here, which it would have been, I think, right across there. Yeah, it's off that low in between these two swings. And he didn't draw that line. So he's missing that one. And of course he may not have had enough price action to figure that out yet. But if you drew it and copied it and drug it up and then found the middle, it fits in there perfect, and that would have shown you why you turned down early right there. There's a little resistance flat ways here too, but that brown, and you can see that brown trend line works. Well, I didn't mean to take it all the way out like that. You can see that brown trend line. Only place it got off a little bit right in here. We overshot it, but then it undershot it. But notice how we turned down off of it there. We turned back up off of it here. You can see it still reacting to that midline right here. Both sides right here. So remember that a lot of times early on when you get these first trends, if it's going to be a trend day, it won't be that steep. That's a little bit too steep. This is not quite 45-degree angle either. This blue one's probably more like it, this shorter term one here. But we had that correction, and then all that was the news item. So I spent a lot of time on that trade, but so many asked about it, I think it was worthwhile. couple other things I'll show you here. Notice there's your first leg up, and so when we went to go higher, look for a measured leg, and you can see we about had a perfect measured leg there. Oops. Oh man, I can never grab the right line. Might as well just get rid of that one and copy it and start over. Just wasting time here. I'm just going to leave it. There we go. But you got that leg, measure that leg, and then when it get a measured leg there, notice this. Make this a little bigger. Notice this little spiking channel up here. This is a shorter term channel in the bigger brown one. And once we started going higher, just get your equal distance on that, move it up there. And look, that's exactly where prices went. They turned down. So that gives you, just like we do on the ranges, you can do that on this. If you get an overshoot, first, this looks like the trend channel. And it might have been an overshoot here, but when it keeps going, go ahead and get your equal distance, and this just turns out to be a midline is all it is. So hopefully that's clear. I'm just talking away, and I don't know where I left off there. I'd hit the pause button, but I wanted to just show you, stay out at least in 30 minutes. I usually say an hour beforehand, because I've seen prices get like this for 2 or 3 hours prior to 1 o'clock when the volatility's low. And you don't want to get stuck in that and then hit the news item. And so you'll have to exit before the news item, because you don't want to get chopped up and take a big loss. And so you never can get your profit because you're just stuck going sideways. And so I would say don't take any new trades an hour before news time. If you're already in a trade and you want to manage one and see what happens, then maybe you keep it right up to about 30 minutes to a quarter of an hour prior, and then exit. I'm not sure if I showed you this or not, but this channel here, you got a little spike up in channel that's inside the bigger brown channel. And once we broke above that, that's and keeps going, that's not an overshoot. So measure this side, put it over there, and notice that's exactly where prices go. It works just like a trading range. You just measure it and get an equal distance. So, but what you wanted to do today was wait on these key entry points. You could have shorted this line down through here. You could have taken these shorts, but once you set this trend line, every time it came back to it, you'd want to take a trade off of it. But then look for your shorter term ones, and you could have traded this one up if you get a good setup, this one down if you get a good setup. Once you start going up into this one, there's trade every time prices come back to that line. Then notice how steep this one gets. And you can trade this one every time it comes back. If you get a setup, take it. And then definitely you can trade this down into about 12 o'clock. I wouldn't trade it anymore. And then you just, once the news triggers and you see this craziness, just wait till it settles down. And then you got this trend working up, trade it. So, I'll see some people, they don't even put these shorter term trends on there. And if all you have is the big pattern, you get one shot at it. And if you're wrong, then you're just stuck. So you got to dig in down to the smaller time frames. So remember that. There's always something going on at every level. I mean, you don't want to get down and like this one, you may only get a few trade opportunities off this one, because then it starts to get too far away from the EMA, and you don't want to be going long up here, because look what happens. We know it's coming back. But after a big move like this down, and then not very big correction, you're probably going to get another leg. I'm surprised we didn't get a measured leg, but we couldn't, because this was really, what had happened, we just slanted over into a different, this is actually a spike in channel. Somebody asked me about that yesterday. Look how prices spike up real strongly, but that's too strong. So they go into another channel, and just draw that trend line across there and you can see it. And prices turned a little early here, but what had happened was this news item. One thing I can tell you, when you see this news item and it makes this big move, almost always within the next hour or so, it'll take it all back. And the market kind of resets and starts back where it was. And we were trending up then, and it starts trending up again. Trends up. But let me show you this, what it does. You got this little spike in channel, two-tiered channel. You get a break, and it moves to a new high and corrects. And look, there's two legs up to a new high. Perfect price action. Actually went a little further than a measured leg. So it's still perfect price action. You just have to be able to find it. Okay, this trader sent me his chart. He took two trades. He took a long right here, and he took a long right here. And the first thing I want to say is this long right here, you're in the middle of a huge downtrend. So don't be trying to pick bottoms. This kills traders more than anything. That's the first thing I think I have printed in the manual when it starts to talk about trading is don't try to pick tops and bottoms. You're only trying to sell the highs and buy the lows on a range day when you're at proven support that's bounced many times. That's the first time prices bounce there at all. So there's no reason, there's no previous support there anywhere across there. Look, so there's no trade there. You're just trying to pick a bottom. So here's this trade zoomed in a little closer, but notice you have a new low and you got a first entry, and then you went higher and you turned and came back down. So that's really a second entry short right there. And so where he got stopped out is where you would have been wanting to go short. And if you'd went short there, it's an easy trade. But instead, he went long right into that resistance across there and got stopped out instantly. So it broke higher and instantly turned down. That's a long trap. He just basically got trapped to the long side. And it's not even the only people that's going to fool are brand new traders that don't have a clue what they're doing. And I'm not trying to pick on this trader, but this is the worst thing you can do is try to pick a bottom. So not picking on you if this is your chart. So I don't call any names, so nobody will know your name. But don't be trying to pick bottoms because it's a losing strategy. Okay, now here's his other trade. And he at least had the right idea here. It made a new high, first entry, and it pulled back, and second entry. That bar is probably, one more tick and that closes in the middle, and it's a neutral bar. It's not a great signal bar. You may take that trade on a good setup, but your key entry, your trend line's down here. That's where prices are heading. You got two legs down to the trend line, and you got a little two-legged correction. So that's going to be the center of your pattern most likely. And I don't know what happened from here, but if anything, you would be looking for a long right here. You're just too early right here. So look for your long over here and wait for a good setup. You couldn't go long on that bar, so wait for a good setup. But most people, if they'll just wait, and the thing is, he's got his trend line perfect here. So I don't see, that's exactly how I would draw it. It's fitting person. He didn't quite get there right here. So that means he's probably he may overshoot it a little bit. I don't remember what prices did here. This is from yesterday, I think. So, but yeah, this trade, the first trade, not even close. This trade, you're at least in the right ballpark. You're just early. Okay, this trader sent me his chart this morning, and this is this was the first leg up, and then we got the second big leg up. And his first trade is a short here. Notice your new low and you're moving up. You got a first entry and then you got a second entry right there. And so he took a third entry short on an inside bar in a big strong uptrend. We are a long way away from the EMA, so you wouldn't want to go long there, but I wouldn't necessarily want to go short either because it could still push up a little higher. The key here is wait for a correction and then look for a long. Because with a leg that big, you're probably going to get another attempt at another leg up. So then he takes a long down here. Notice that you could call that a double high moving down. Looks like a, make it a little bigger. I can't tell if there's a first entry. Coming down, first entry, and then so your second entry is right there. He used this bar. They do have matching lows, so you could probably use that bar, but your second entry is already triggered back here. If you're going to use this bar, the way you would do it was let this break higher and put your limit order back one tick above that. If you'd have done that, you probably would have still got a good trade. You might have got a good trade out of that one anyway, and that just shows you taking a second entry with the trend at the EMA. You'll probably get a scalp out of it, but not a good setup still. Because he's just used, these are inside bars and they're not good signal bars, and you're, by the time you get a third one, you're just going sideways and you see you just kind of got congestion the rest of the way on out here. He finally makes a new low here, but there's a trend line working down. You get a break, a new low, and then a higher low, so that's the place to go long. And he notes that one too. It's not a perfect signal bar, but it's close enough. And notice how everything's above the EMA. So trend line working down, you get a break, a new low, and then a higher low. That's the place to go long and look at it take off. Okay, here it is after I added a few things. That was his channel working down. Notice the break and the new low. So now this one's played out, and there's actually two little legs in there. And then you run up and you make the higher low back above the EMA, and you get a chance to go long on that higher low. That's the perfect play right there. And you can see that trend line working up, and you get that measured leg up. So first two trades, this trade's close. He's in the ballpark. He's a little early. This trade, scratch that. You're trying to pick tops. It worked this time. You'll reinforce a terrible habit. Next time it'll turn up and stop you out and then run straight down. So don't try picking tops. It's just, you're just going to lose money that way. Okay, this trader sent me his chart. I think this was from yesterday too. And you're working down here, and he sees the little range right here, and you get a little failed break lower, and I guess he's trading that break. The key here is, do you have enough room to scalp out before getting back to the high? I don't think he does. I think this trade failed was what he was asking me about. Or maybe this one, I think this one worked, and this was the one that failed. But that's very close. The key to this trade is having enough room to get out. And plus, we've been in a big down. You can't see the rest of it. This is that big downtrend, and this is just a correction. So you'd be better off to trade the failed break up here and go short, and because it's probably going to continue on to the downside on a big downtrend day. So you're really counter trend trading in a way there. So this would have probably been the better trade if you had a good signal bar and enough room, and hopefully you catch this right here and it just keeps going. And notice it just did this all the way down. It comes, breaks, runs down and goes sideways again, runs down, goes sideways. It just does that over and over. And you can see lots of short opportunities there. They're not great ones, but they're there. And then this was the one that failed on him. He went short here, one tick lower, and it trapped him. But notice what's happened. You're going sideways again. What had happened, met a perfect measured move here. And so now we're going sideways, and it failed out the low. Well, what normally happens when prices fail out of a trading range? Notice it failed out the top. Now it's probably going to fail out the bottom. And that's what happened. And breakout pullback, you could say, okay, well, that was a breakout pullback short. But those fail more than any other setup we follow. And generally, a breakout's going to fail, even if it's only going to be temporarily. So just not a good place for a short. You're better off to do nothing there. But when it broke lower and turned back up, that would have been a perfect trap to go long. So you just kind of had it a little backwards there. This is basically the same chart I showed you earlier. Same thing. He's trying to pick a bottom down here. He tried to go long, trying to pick a bottom, and it quickly failed. And if you just went short, this was that big downtrend. This was the measured move down. I was just showing you this on the other chart. So don't try to pick bottoms. If you don't get anything else from today, don't try to pick tops and bottoms. Okay, here's another trade, and this is that uptrend again. That big spike up and then the pull back. And he even has his trend line on here. So he waited for the break and the new low. So now this is played out, but then he goes short right here. But I think the reason he said he went short was because it looks like a little trading range, which it is. But notice his trend, his signal bar is really neutral. It closes almost in the middle. You got just as much stem as you do down here. So that's really a neutral bar. Plus it's an inside bar. An inside bar, notice the low here and the high here are both inside the high and the low here. So you're going short on a bullish inside bar, a neutral inside bar to a bullish one. And on top of that, you don't have enough room to scalp out between here and here. So you can't, there's no trade there. There's a new low, so it's just a first entry. So you had the right idea of maybe looking for a breakout, but you got to have a good setup, and this is just not a good setup. Plus, this is an uptrend, so you're really looking to get long out of here, most likely, because there's a big uptrend going on. So here's a chart that we had some relatively decent trading on. His trend line too comes right up through there and catches those and those too. So is this no, this is the ES. But he took a second entry long here. Notice the new high, it's higher than that high. So first entry, second entry, right at the key entry point. Nice signal bar, way away from the EMA. Good trade. That's a great trade right there. Then it runs up here. He calls this a failed second. Let me make this bigger. He calls this one a failed second entry short, but it's not. Here's your new low. So first entry, second entry, third entry, fourth entry, fifth. That's a fifth entry short. I don't know where he came up with the second entry. Just somewhere he's confused on the count or how to count it or something. He still got a point out of it, but guess what? He went long with the trend, off the EMA and a bullish bar. So just getting the other parts right, he still had a great trade. It's not a real good setup, but just because he entered with a trend off the key entry point with a good signal bar, and bouncing off the EMA as well. There's a little bit of resistance across there too. It looks like we're kind of making a double top, but if it breaks higher, it's probably going higher like it did. But notice how it pulled back and tested it and then went on back up again. So not a great setup, but he had 4 trades and 4 wins for 10 points. So, but it seems like there's one of them in here that was not a good trade. Oh, here we go. This is the one I did not like. again, he's got the right idea because there is some resistance across here. We are in a trading range. We are a long way away from the EMA. So if you're going to enter, you got to enter back to it. But and notice that you do have a close outside, a new high, double top, so a lower high. So he did everything right here. The only problem is you're in a little trading range, and there's your support, and you don't have but maybe a tick or two's room right there. You do have a little bit of room here. I like this trade as an aggressive trade, but there's probably going to be better trades than this. So if you're a really good price action trader and you like being aggressive and you don't have a lot of losers, that might be one you take. But for newer traders that are learning, I'd skip that trade. So, but it's one of his better trades. Is made 4 points off of it. But notice he didn't get fooled here. He's got come down first entry and he got his second entry, but he drew his trend line. He knew not to go long right there. That's where everybody got confused today. It wasn't back to my trend line. It's not quite back to his, but that's so close you couldn't really argue with it. And here was the one I really didn't like because we're trending up and he treated this like a failed breakout. There was some resistance here, but this is not a range day. This is a trend day. So again, he made 4 points off of it, but he waited on a great signal bar. I do believe if you drew the trend line, we've already had a close and 2 legs up too, so he got that right. But the bigger picture is a trend line, an uptrend. So he'd been better off waiting on this one, and he missed this one. He was busy typing his other ones and missed this one. He called this a second entry long, and I see why. There's actually 2 legs back to the EMA, but your new high is here. So first entry, second entry, third entry, and you don't make a new high until up here. So then your count really, I'd start my count over right there. So first entry, then it starts over again. But this is a third entry long, so he missed that part. But I still wouldn't be afraid to take that because look, he made a new low. You got a first entry short, a second entry short. You got a bullish signal bar. There is 2 legs back to the EMA. Lots of reasons to take that. That is an inside bar, but I still, because of the failed second entry short, I wouldn't be afraid to take that trade. It's a higher low as well. That's a good trade. So not quite for the reasons he listed there, but not bad. 4 wins. 10 points. So there's a few things he could improve, but not a bad read, really. Okay, I'm just going to put my chart back up here for just a minute, and just so you can get a look at it and compare your chart to it. Again, I didn't mark any trades today. We're already at 38 minutes, and I've got another 10 or 15 on the trade example that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to wrap this one up, but I just wanted you to see my chart. But just remember, a lot of times early on, you'll get a trend and when you get a break, always look to see if you get a little flatter channel, just in case, just draw it. And when it came back and confirmed it, you had to consider it might be there. And so this was the channel the rest of the day, really. And there's another little spiking channel inside that, but you can see we went to the highs, turned down, came back. We didn't quite get back to the lows here. I think if it hadn't been for the FOMC, I don't even think we'd have shot down there. We really took it all back and restarted. And we came back down here and we bounced off the line because it just came off the high. So the next one it ended up touching was here. And then it runs up here and it found resistance here. And then now we're into the next day, really. But it still found some resistance right there when it first moved up. So, your trades today, again, I'm going to show you those one more time, and I'm going to try to get this done by 40 minutes. We got 30 seconds here. But this was a trend line. So the key entry point there was some key entry points up through here. Coming back down. Might have been 1 or 2 right in here. I don't think I'd have taken any shorts here, but you definitely didn't want to go long there. Going back up, right into here. But then once we got into here, you got this key entry point. You got several trade opportunities off of that one. And in this one, you got some more trade opportunities as well. And then even coming down, if it wasn't for the news, you'd have had several opportunities there. And then that really took us into the 2 o'clock hour. So just remember, be patient. I'm 30 seconds more than I said I was going to be, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'll add the trade to the end. I hope you enjoy that, and I'm going to wrap it up. We'll see you next time. Today's Wednesday, so yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.